And so it took Australia just 2.5 days. We were all expecting a close finish. I'll raise my hand up and say I gave the headline for today's edition titled Photo Finish Beckons, and it was far from that. It was almost like Usain Bolt, or as the new kid, good. It was a finish with a comfortable country mile distance between the winner and the second place team. That's how Australia wrapped up the Border Gavaskar Trophy for the first time in almost a decade, or more than a decade. Vinayakk will correct me with the actual number of years that Australia didn't keep the trophy, but a 6-wicket win wrapped up inside 2.5 days. Vinayakk, it was an anticlimactic end, but also one we expected the moment Jasprit Bumrah didn't take the field on Sunday morning.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much where it all began to sink in. I mean, at least for me, I don't know about more hopeful Indian fans, the glass half full kind, whether they were expecting a little bit more. But yeah, the moment we saw Sriram Veera's update on our WhatsApp group saying, hey guys, Jasprit Bumrah is not in the huddle, then yeah, that the ball dropped at that point of time. And no, I mean, I honestly don't think India had enough. The pitch was doing all sorts of things for sure, but 165 was never going to be enough. And especially more so when we knew that Bumrah was not going to be bowling. And even if he did, I don't know if... I mean, people are now saying, like Justin Langer at the end of the match was saying, if Bumrah was there, he would have been unplayable. It would have been a whole different... I don't think he would have had the support from the other end. So I don't know. It's all hypothetical at the point. But I just have to say, the start that India had to the second innings with the ball was absolute nightmare. I don't know if even nightmares are that bad. I think I calculated the first 2 overs, they conceded 16% of the target. So, yeah, that's how bad that was. A brief fight back after that.
That's insane.
Insane. Yeah, to get 3 wickets before lunch. And, again, people were like, oh, there is another twist, but that post-lunch session was just India going through the motions largely. I don't think there was any fight left in them, which was, a disappointing end to what was otherwise a fairly decent series.
Yeah, you mentioned about, how if there were hopefuls who expected India to even put up a fight despite Jasprit Bumrah not being there. I don't think so, because last night I was out for dinner. I was speaking to a couple of my brothers who are proper die-hard India team fans, and even they had given up hopes. If Jasprit wasn't there, they knew India would stand very little chance of getting something out of this match. But there's no point actually, reviewing today's play, right? It was so one-sided. Things just got over before we even realized what was happening. So Vinayakk, I think it's a good time to also look back at the series, and we'll just stick to 3 brackets. Let's pick our good, bad and the ugly from this tour. I don't know if there'll be a lot in that good category, but plenty in the bad and ugly, I guess. So where do you want to begin?
I'm guessing we're just doing for India, not Australia. There's plenty of good for Australia.
It could be anything, actually. Yeah, of course, yeah. But India perspective, of course, would be interesting. But yeah, Australia, Bo Webster. Sam Constance se bhi zyada, Bo Webster is someone who really impressed me. But we go off track here. So yeah, please pick where do you want to start.
I think the good, bad and ugly, we can stick to the Indian perspective, because I don't know if any Australians are listening to this. But yeah, before we get into that, a word of appreciation for how Australia bounced back from Perth, right? Cummins, who was in the presser, and we just got an update from Veera, was what he was saying, what changed after Perth. And then he says, the key was what didn't change. Cummins has these lovely one-liners in the press conferences. I just love listening to him. Very to the point. And I think what Australia did was not panic. That was hugely important, because they trusted, all the talk about divided dressing room, aging cricket team, all 30 plus and all that, it feels like a fair way away from where we were post-Perth. Australia stuck to their plans. They trusted their groups. They trusted their seniors to come good. The bowlers were superb for most of the series. Cummins was sensational. If not for Bumrah, he would have been the player of the series. And the thing is, Cummins had a Stark and a Boland and a Hazelwood, and even Lyon, when needed, chipped in with a few wickets here and there. Although it is probably the fewest overs he's bowled in a 5-match series in Australia. So that was a proper bowling unit that delivered. And I thought, huge credit to Pat Cummins, who now has added another feather to his cap. ODI World Cup winning captain, Test World Championship winning captain, Ashes. And of course, now the Border Gavaskar Trophy, getting it back since 2014-15 when Australia held it for the last time. So huge credit to Pat Cummins. What a sensational captain, what a sensational bowler, and just an all-round fantastic guy. So before we head into good, bad and ugly, I just wanted to mention that.
Lovely, yeah, absolutely. And as they mentioned, right now, under his leadership, Australia is holding almost every major trophy that the country could, except the T20 World Cup. So that's pretty sensational. I mean, we'll just quickly go through the series wrap for India. We're already almost 7 minutes into this podcast. Starting with the good, because there are so few goods, Vinayak. Where do you even start, right? Bumrah, of course. And I mean, we've spoken a lot about him, but that I think is the only good part that shines through for India from this series. 32 wickets in 5 tests. Incredible stuff. But yeah, it leaves with a lot of regret too, because on the deciding day of the test match, he had to sit out, and it was heartbreaking to watch him, sitting in the dressing room looking so helpless while things weren't working out for his team in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, Bumrah is probably better than good for India this series. Yeah, superhuman, I have to say. You rightly said we've dedicated most part of these daily episodes to Bumrah because I saw there was a Crickbuzz stat the other day that I pinged on our group. Bumrah has been in action on every day of this tour so far, either with a bat
every day
or ball. So it was kind of sad that the series ended with him. Actually, he did bat today as well. It was not like he didn't have an off day. He did bat a couple of balls today, and he was not involved with the ball. So I mean, 32 wickets, sub 14 average. Crazy strike rate, 3 5-wicket hauls. As so many people have said, this is one of the, I think Travis Head said at the end as well, this is one of the best performances by a visiting cricketer in Australia. Batter, bowler, doesn't matter. This is one of the greatest performances ever seen in Australian shores. So that's huge credit to Bumrah. I mean, honestly, the fact that we are here discussing maybe India had a chance is all down to Bumrah. Just one person who kept India competitive in the series. Slightly one level below Bumrah would be Jaiswal. A few good hits, few misses. But I mean, if you count the number of people who can return from Australia with heads held high and knowing that, they had a good outing, I think Jaiswal, Bumrah and probably Nitish Reddy are the three people. I mean, even Nitish had a few misses after that century, but still, Bumrah at the top and Jaiswal and Nitish after that. Anyone else you think, Mihir?
Nitish, after the century, I don't know, something kind of snapped, I guess, because he didn't look himself with the bat after the century. I agreed that the Sydney pitch was tough, but the Melbourne second innings is something he could have, held on to the end a lot stronger. But again, still the first tour to Australia, young guy, certainly one to look out for the future over there. I can't think of any, truly. I mean, what I would say is Mohammad Siraj, to a certain extent. The fact that he's bowled more overs than Bumrah on this tour, since Bumrah didn't bowl today, shows that he's fit enough to carry the workload for 5 test series, which is incredible, but also frustrating at the same side because of his inconsistency. I mean, today should have been a day where he put his hand up and took the responsibility, but what happened is he completely kind of imploded and they were milking runs of him. So I'm a bit split on Siraj over there. I wouldn't exactly put him in bad or ugly, but he doesn't fit in good as well. And over the batting side, I can't think of anyone apart from the ones you mentioned already. So I guess that's the good part of this series. We move to the bad ones, and I guess we'll perhaps lose count over here. But I think I'll start straight up with the team selections. It starts right there. Batting was your problem, but you didn't kind of reinforce your batting selections as the series progressed, even though some of your batsmen were constantly failing. On what basis were they kept in the team is something that no one is given clear answers to, so that remains a mystery.
Hunger and passion, Mihir.
As Gautam Gambhir said in the press conference after the test series.
Try putting that in a statistical database. Hunger and passion kept all these people in the... I mean, that's ridiculous. Sorry, I just wanted to... didn't mean to interject, but I found that ridiculous.
No, it's absolutely, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, hunger and passion, everyone who is involved at anything they do have the hunger and passion, else there is no business doing any of those things. So to say that Virat Kohli or Rohit Sharma or Shubman Gill have the hunger and passion is it's, I think, doing them a disservice. If Virat Kohli didn't have the hunger and passion, then, well, God help him. But yeah, I mean, at least I would have seen, since the batsman was struggling, I would have liked to see Sarfaraz Khan get a chance at least. He was carrying drinks until the last day of this series, so that's a bit unfortunate. And the selections on the bowling side too. First of all, I didn't get the logic of packing the team with all-rounders. Didn't serve purpose at all. And then you had two spinners, if you count Washington Sundar's bowling, even though he wasn't used, but he's still slotted in as a spinner. And the home side themselves are using just one spinner, and that too, Nathan Lyon too, was barely used in the series. So clearly, the pitches weren't offering anything to the spinners, and you were packing a side with two spinners. A pacer today would have come in handy, who knows? So the team selection set starts for me. What about you?
Absolutely nailed on, 100%. I mean, Washington Sundar played that little cameo with Nitish Reddy in Melbourne, and that came at, number 8 or number 9, I think, maybe because of the night watchman thing. But, I mean, do you really want to select a player in your 11 as an insurance option at number 8 or number 9? I mean, what sort of thinking is that? And Rohit Sharma said after Melbourne, Shubman Gill was not dropped, but it was a combination thing, and we brought in Washington because we didn't want to lose either the batting depth or the bowling depth. That is complete defensive mindset. And for all the things that Ravi Shastri and Virat Kohli did during their era as coach and captain, they never thought that way. They always wanted to pick 20 wickets. Here and there they missed a few tricks and they made selection errors too. But every decision that they made was geared towards taking 20 wickets in a test match. Every single time that was their thought process.
Vinayakk, sorry, I interject. They used to change the 11 after every match. So they were at the other extreme, but still it worked. They were not passive.
No, yeah. That was the downside to what Kohli and Shastri did. But the crux of it was to pick 20 wickets, right? So that bit I'd have to give them credit for. The chopping and changing was a little bit extreme at some point, but largely they got things right. They won more tests overseas than they didn't lose tests at home. They competed overseas superbly for most part. Even when they lost in England, they could have easily won that series. That was a very narrow loss despite the scoreline. They always had that in mind. Like, are we capable of picking 20 wickets in a test match? Because you're not going to win otherwise. None of the selection calls here indicated that to me, right? Picking Ravindra Jadeja and Washington Sundar in Melbourne and then doubling down on that in Sydney on the greenest of surfaces that we saw in the series. Absolute nonsense.
That was stupid.
Right? I mean, like, you could have gone either way. You could have either strengthened the batting and trusted your 4 bowlers to do the job, or you could have strengthened the bowling by picking another pacer. So anyway, yeah, so that's just one of those things that India didn't get absolutely. I mean, since you put it in bad, we'll go with it, but I was actually tempted to put this in ugly.
Ugly, I'm actually leaving for ugly. The whole mid-series retirement of Ravichandran Ashwin, he took a call. But, I mean, it is always ugly to see a player leave the team mid-series and return to the country. We don't know what happened behind the scenes. Ravichandran Ashwin's dad said a few things, which the bowler himself kind of played it down later on. So it started with that. And then the whole drama around Rohit Sharma's status in the team, right? The team management completely failed to handle that bit. Where to put Rohit Sharma, whether he should be in the 11, if he's in the 11, whether he should open or come low down the order on number 3. It disturbed the entire team, I feel, because it put doubt in the minds of Shubman Gill, for example. KL Rahul disturbed those two players in terms of where they bat in the team. It completely spoiled the team's combination going from Perth to Adelaide. So I think that was the whole trigger that kind of, and the team from then on completely, it looked unsettled. And the way his whole Sydney thing was handled. I mean, come on. And then you're seeing like every player almost auditioning to be the next captain. So, it was terrible to watch.
Right. I mean, I think you nailed that. I would add, for my bit, ugly was the Kohli Constas shoulder barge. That was definitely not on. That's completely uncalled for. The rest of the controversies and like the little mini banters and sledging was fine. I don't think anything crossed the line. But that Kohli thing was those 3 words that we won't repeat from Sunil Gavaskar. Yeah, just to add to bad, I think we can put Kohli's disastrous run after Perth in bad. I mean, probably not ugly because he tried to battle out in Melbourne, but it just didn't work out. But to get out 8 times, edging behind, and those 2 dismissals in Sydney, complete carbon copy of each other, then just not having an answer to his own problems and refusing to do anything about it. I think we said this after Melbourne, it feels like an ego battle to him. Like, I mean, I can't conquer my weakness outside the off stump, but also the fact that he doesn't have other shots there. I think the technical flaw is that he doesn't have a back foot game. Sanjay Bangar was briefly talking about it on commentary. He knows, I mean, he's been the batting coach. Like, he would like to see Virat take the back foot option and try a few other shots. If you're going to get out edging outside the off stump, at least do it by playing a different shot, right? Like a square cut or a slash or a pull down the leg side, taking the ball from outside or something or the other. But he kept getting out the same way. So that was pretty bad in the whole picture.
Yeah, I think, there's so many bad and uglies that it's like literally impossible to fit in one pod, and especially one pod where we're keeping it tight to 15 and 20 minutes. So I guess, Vinayak, we'll perhaps try and do another detailed episode, looking back and kind of properly analyzing the Border Gavaskar Trophy. Hopefully, this coming weekend's game time episode can be dedicated to that, or we'll see if something else comes up, because we've been doing a lot of cricket. Unless you've got something to add, I think we can call it a series. Of course, Sriram Veera's observations from Sydney is something that our listeners will be able to listen to before we end this podcast. But Vinayak, anything else that you want to add?
No, yeah, looking forward to better sleeps over the coming weeks.
Oh, well, everyone, I think, is looking forward to that. But thanks to all the listeners for tuning in every day of this test series. Whenever there has been a test match, to listen to our review podcast. It's been a pleasure bringing these to you. And we'll perhaps do this again when India will be in action, I guess, at Champions Trophy. Our producer, Shashank Bhargava, I can already hear him wincing, even his Zoom is on mute. But we'll convince him to do that. Thanks again for listening. Before we say goodbye, we leave you with this series roundup, series observation by Sriram Veera, our man on ground in Sydney. Thanks again.
In the end, it was a touch flat. It's a great triumph for Australia, so don't get me wrong on that. What I mean is the mood in the stadium. So I had a walk around the stadium in the stands. Not every stand, but the large amount of people were gathered near the end of the win, when 40 runs were left, and then when right near the end, when like 8 runs were left. So on alternate phases, but because it's, I won't say the straw at the end, because they did lose a few wickets, but by and large, you realize those were wickets gifted away, a couple of them, and Australian batsmen were more or less secure. And the crowd, I'm talking about the Australian crowd, the Indians obviously were flat, but large segment of Australians too, who probably got used to all the drama every day, not only in SCG, be it Perth or wherever, Melbourne, of course. And Bumrah pulled out of the morning, and I think that's pulled out as it was clear that he was not going to bowl. And after that point, the chase was a bit of an easy affair for Australia, and the crowd, I guess, wanted a little bit more fight, a little bit more drama, and so they ended up muttering, and of course they clapped when the moment happened, but through the day, near the end, was a bit flat. So where India, at various points in this series, people who started, Jasprit Bumrah, of course, was the real star, taking so many wickets, immortalizing himself into the public imagination in Australia. Nobody here is going to forget. Every former cricketer has raved, and nearly unanimous verdict seems to be he's the best fast bowler they have seen here. High praise. So he is real star. We had a couple of batting performances. Nitish Reddy started in a game, but he couldn't continue doing it at SCG. KL Rahul started well in Perth, but again tapered off. That seems a bit of an issue with him over the years now. Jaiswal must have learned a few things about how to handle certain tough situations as far as mind goes. Not here. He got a very good ball, pitched him on and off from bowler, and just cracked his off stump in the second innings. But I'm just really talking about the previous, like Melbourne, where he went for a pull and that sunk India. So he would have learned how to handle those movements. And there are other stuff as well. Rishabh Pant has been pillarized for his shots in Melbourne. And mind you, before that, for 3 tests, he hardly played a rash shot. All the time he was out when mini crisis was happening, trying to defend. And so he had a go at Melbourne. But again, he also learned how to ride those movements. He's already played one of the few great knocks in Test cricket in the past. And then he nearly pulled off another beauty in the second innings. But he, of course, fell yesterday. So Gambhir, the coach will have to, he's talked a lot about honesty. And he's that kind of a man, to be fair to him. I've met him before, I've spoken to him before. He's that kind of a guy. But he will also need to self-reflect. It's not just, not that he's deflected, but he needs to sit down and self-reflect his approach. What happened against Bangladesh? What happened at home in New Zealand? What sort of pitches were prepared that you led to a historic 0-3 whitewash, end of a 12-year home series streak? And what happened here? The model sort of thinking in selection and playing. You had moments, you won the Perth, and then you still had moments across, littered through the series, but you couldn't do it. So Gambhir as a coach will have to reflect that. Then that leaves us with Kohli and Rohit Sharma, 2 legends of the game. Kohli, a test legend, Rohit, the white ball legend, whose test career hasn't quite gone to that kind of a level. But he has to now sit, think, He did a brave performance in front of for Star Sports, which is good. He spoke a few things, but now he has to, once the heat settles down, once he goes back home, spends his time with his kids, he has to say, what is his future in Test cricket? When does he call retirement across board? Will it be a Champions Trophy? There's a call he has to make, not to prove a point to anyone, but as he said, do bachche ka baap hu, samajhdar hu, and which he is. So hopefully he makes a good decision. And that leaves us with Virat Kohli. He too has to now sit and decide how he wants to go. Batting isn't clicked at all through the series. Does he think that he can pull it off? He has course correction time and he can pull it off in England. Is he going to be part of the next WTC cycle till the end? Is he going to play? Should India be thinking about that? Kohli certainly should think about all that, and the decision has to be made. But anyway, that's for the immediate future. As of now, Australia have wrapped up the BGT. And they would think if rain didn't do it in Brisbane, they would have had a 4-1 win. Be that as it may, at the end of it was a sweet scenes. Not only did Pat Cummins come with his wife and daughter into the press conference, rather he was inside and they came in. And after that, all the partners and wives of the players were on the playing arena at the SCG, running, laughing. It was a great time to be an Australian player. Not so much for the Indian camp.
You were listening to Express Sports by the Indian Express. This show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.